Hallo, das ist ja ein toller Willkommensgruß. Also jetzt müssen wir was ganz Seltsames machen, und zwar ins Englische switchen. Seid ihr bereit? Now it's English. Because I was asked to speak in English because my second keynote speaker together, we will have an English panel, and the keynote will be in English. So I'm switching to English now, and I hope it's all fine with you guys, right? Okay, great. So now we just need to get, because you know, scientists without slides are naked, right? We always need our slides, so you can see this beautiful brain. That's a brain which is like a firework, but it's actually the connectivity of a brain. It's a huge network, our brain. It's like a network working in time and space all the time together. So what I wanted to do is to give you a kind of from inner work to societal change perspective, right? Because you ask yourself, what is she doing as a psychologist, neuroscientist on a stage which is about entrepreneurship, right, and economy. And you can imagine, I will tell you that in a minute, my big questions are how can I, as a psychologist and neuroscientist, help to solve big problems of society, right? And of course, problems like rising loneliness. And I don't know whether you know, but since the pandemic, this problem has been exacerbated, and we have now the 18 to 25-year-old is the loneliest population cohort ever recorded in loneliness research. It's not the 80 plus anymore. And we have a huge, what we call loneliness pandemic or epidemic. We have increasing stress level. We have increasing individualism, especially in the West, and associated depression. But of course, climate crisis, poverty in the midst of plenty macroeconomic problems. So my wish since ever when I do this research is can we, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an economist, I cannot change institutional design, I cannot change law or contracts, right? That's not my business. But I can learn how you can change world from within. And in us, we have a macroscopic, amazing world we can discover for a whole lifetime, right? It never ends. It's a wonderful journey. And now you can imagine I working on inner work and compassion and empathy, and in 2016 I joined an economy department in Zurich, and I was economy professor. Can you imagine that as a psychologist, neuroscientist working on altruism and compassion? Because Ernst Fehr, who is below, brought me into the economy department because we had a network. We wanted to understand interdisciplinary the reasons for cooperation to emerge and the reason for cooperation to break down. And that's something we psychologists are also interested in, economists as well. So I started learning about all these crazy utility function and all the models, neoclassicistic models. I was in these lectures. And so I was like, oh my God, this is amazing that we are not talking psychology and economy, even though it's all about human decision-making and cooperation in human social life. So we developed new economic models, or we tried, which are based on psychology and neuroscience and behavioral economics. And why did we do that? That's a sketch, right? The economist among you will say that's really a bit sketchy, but you know, I have just 20 minutes of time. So the economists call it preference, right? Preference, you like apples more than grapes. And this preference comes from nowhere, it's endogenously given, it's not context sensitive. But it determines choices, whether you will buy apple or prince. And then you have these funny abstract beliefs, which will be, I believe that you think that apples are actually, and that will determine my choice, my interaction with you. Okay, we psychologists find that quite crazy, to be honest, because our model of the world is totally different. We have, instead of calling it preferences and fixed and stable, we have motivation system. And motivation system are many. I will talk about some of them in a minute. And these motivation systems, they can be activated in seconds by a context. When I'm at home, I'm in a different care system than if I'm in my finance work environment, right? And this motivation system will determine my goals and my decisions. So, and then there's much more complexity to it, of course. So what are motivation systems, right? They're evolutionary, very old. They have a reason. And there is one category, it's called incentive focus. And they are like goal-driven, right? It's like, I want to achieve, I want to be the best, I want to be better than yesterday. Olympics, you know, sports is a lot about achievement, for example. Then we have consumption. Consumption can be food, but it can also be consuming everything, no? Clothes, shopping, and power motivation, status and power. Now, there is another family of motivational system, which everyone knows and is also there in animals, threat, when we are under threat. And this comes with emotion like anger. Anger is approach, fear is avoiding. And then there are these nice socially focused motives. It's affiliation, right? We want to belong. We want to belong to a tribe, to a group, to a family, to a society, to a nation, to Europe. And there is care, and care is different than affiliation. Care is really, I care about your welfare, right? This is coming from very old mother-child or father-child system, yeah? I care about the welfare of my child more than probably of my own, in many cases. And all these motives comes with certain psychological states. So if you are in these incentive-focused, now achievement and power, it's high arousal, it's drive, it's excitement, it's yeah, you know. But the problem is if you are too much in that, you are in addiction. You get into addiction, you get into workaholism, you get into handy addiction, you get into money addiction, you get into food addiction. We have obesity, no, as a big problem in the Western society. Okay, then threat, you know, now it's freezing is trauma. The freezing reaction of animal and humans is trauma, you freeze. And then you have the socially focused, and especially the care system comes with like love, trust, connectedness, safety. And on a biological level, these are associated with certain biological neuropeptides or systems, right? So when you are in addiction loops, it's the dopamine system. Oh. And that explains, have you ever asked yourself why billionaire and millionaire are greedy and stingy, which a lot are, right? There's statistics on it. Because it's always more. It's not absolute, right? Dopamine system doesn't know I have enough. It only like, I have less than I think. I have less than my neighbor, even if you have already billions, right? So that's because of this loop. And that can, whenever you are not always the best or best achiever, or you have lost your power or whatever, the sweat system comes in, right? Because you are in stress. And the stress is triggering HPH and cortisol. Now, the nice thing with the socially focused systems is that they come with opiates and oxytocin. And you know that you take opiates to get less pain, no? If you are in pain, doctors will give you opiates to feel less pain. So it's anxiolytic. It can inhibit this hyperarousal. It can calm you down, soothe you. So it's actually really good. And we have now developed together with a macroeconomist, Dennis Noah, who put these equations into these files. And these are utility functions. Don't ask me what they mean, because I can't tell you. But the important thing is they mean that in economic jargon, that care will result in prosocial behavior if you activate care. Consumption is the typical utility function. No? Everyone knows it in economy. This is where the whole economy is based on, is the utility function of consumption. But power will lead to competitive behavior, affiliation to conforming, because you want to be part of the group, you want to look like the others, and so on, right? So imagine we can do experiments. So we primed, for example, you guys come into our lab, and I show you some subliminal videos, and I prime your care system. I activate it. You don't even know that it's happening. And I give you a lot of financial, economic, game theoretical games like economists love to use in their experiments. And I can show that if you prime care, you will have more pro-social giving and donations. And if I prime power motivation in the same person, I can do that also in an elegant way without you noticing, then you get more competitive and more punishment-like behaviors in the same game. This just little experiment showing that you can shift motivation system like that. There is no fixed preferences. They are not there. They are context-dependent motives. You can be a good guy in 1 minute and a bad one in the next. So our question is, how can you activate? This video is so cute. It always calms me down. No, just looking at it, you're like, you know. And this activates the care system, and the soothing, and the oxytocin comes out, and it's like, you know, autonomic nervous system relax. But of course, before we do some decisions in everyday life, we cannot always have massage. So our question was, how can we rebalance society? Because the problem is, if you look at our biggest system, finance system, science system, healthcare system, even education system, they are mostly hooked in the incentive motivation. Achievement, power, consumption. That's where they are hooked in, totally. And we are never in care and affiliation. That's not the focus. But then this is out of balance, and if something is out of balance, you get burnout, you get all these kind of diseases, mental health problems, and so on. So we ask ourselves, okay, can we train the social brain? Can we, through mental practices, bring about more social cohesion, more cooperation, more, and also reduce stress and mental health? So how do you train the brain or the mind? Is going inside. It's not like going outside or in a gym and doing something for your muscle. It's like your muscles are in you. It's like your mind. So we have one module, the presence module, and the presence module is all about attention, present moment focus, to the body, to the sounds, just silence and getting present. The affect module, the red one, is all about activating care through gratitude, compassion, loving kindness, is the care system. The perspective, the green one, is all about metacognition, mind reading, perspective taking on other people's thoughts and on me, metacognitive awareness. And then you see these teachers, they are all meditation teachers from very different backgrounds and psychologists and therapists, and they learned these mental exercises in a total secular way, so there is no religion in it, it's very secular, yeah? And then we have this app, and every day you practice 30 minutes these exercises at home. You do, depending on the module, different ones. And at the beginning of a module, you see these 80 people sitting in a big hall. They learn the practice in a retreat. Okay, so why do we have these 3 modules? Because we know from brain and psychology, brain science and psychology, that actually empathy and compassion are relying on different brain networks in blue and in red. The red is the care system, the red network. Then this ability to take the cognitive perspective of someone, to understand thinking and attention. So it's a bit like, given that we know we have these different networks, or let's say muscles, you could say. It's not a muscle in the brain, obviously, but you can devise different exercises to induce plasticity, to change them, to train them. And that's what we did. In each module, we had different practices. And in the panel, we can talk perhaps about when you're a bit more curious about what are these practices, how do they work. And we have more than 60 paper out now, but that is one of a very big chunk of paper and data, because this is structural brain plasticity, meaning it's the hardware of your brain. It's the cells getting bigger, thicker, gray matter getting thicker through training. It's not that it gets thick and you have a big brain coming out, it's just some millimeter, but we can measure it. And that is called plasticity, right? We can change the hardware of our brain. And you see also 3 colors. It's not that the brain is colored, but it is for you guys, right? After 3 months of attention-based mindfulness, you get thicker prefrontal cortex, more attentive networks. After 3 months of care-based compassion, loving kindness, gratitude practice, you get thicker areas in these limbic and paralimbic structure, emotional networks. After 3 months of social intelligence, perspective taking, what are the beliefs of the other? How can I always jump into the shoes of the other? You get thicker areas in mentalizing network, in networks which do that. And it comes with changes in behavior. You get more compassionate, you get higher social intelligence scores and tasks. So, wow, right? That was like a rocket and the moon. It was like, we can do it, right? We can train our social brain. And people always said soft skills, and you cannot measure that in the brain, and it's just something you have or not. No, you can change it. You can do something every day about it. You can become a more empathic, compassionate, more perspective-taking person and more attentive. So we have a lot of results. You can check the webpage. It's too much to summarize, in so short talk. But you see, we could reduce stress, we could boost mental health, we could boost attention, change the brain, change behavior, boost pro-social behavior in economic games. So, and it really matters what you practice. It matters what you do the 3 months. This practice or that practice will have different results. So, that was the ReSource Project. It was a lifelong, still ongoing, 9 terabyte data. But many, many people came and said, can we now bring it in hospitals, in schools? I said, a 9-month program, so much with retreats at the beginning, 3 days, 17 teachers, can you scale that? Oof. So as it's very usual in scientific life, there is just the fate comes in. And I find myself, as everyone, in a lockdown in 2020. And I couldn't do brain science and lab science anymore. So I said, let's take the app we have developed in ReSource Project and let's track Berliners throughout the lockdowns, how they feel. Like mental health, resilience, loneliness, stress, social cohesion. So we tracked the Berliners. That was a CovSocial Project. Over 2 lockdowns. You remember the second lockdown, the 6 months, never-ending, horrible, Berlin gray nightmare, right? And the data show that it was a nightmare for most of the Berliner. So you see here, in the first lockdown, people got a bit more depressed, more anxious, more lonely, more stressed, but they could recover. In June, when everyone thought, hey, that's over, that was a strange thing, right? Yeah, lockdown, strange thing now. Oh, everyone was traveling again, it's over. People recovered pretty quickly. However, in the second lockdown, you see this long red line. Every month, people got more lonely, more depressed, more stressed. And so they were much, much worse off a year later than in the first lockdown, right? It was a cumulative mental health problem arising, and it was actually, and this is across all studies I have seen so far, especially in the longer second lockdown, the females suffered most and the youngest. The 18 to 25-year-olds were much more affected in vulnerability and mental health than the older generation, and we see that in all countries. So we said, okay, we can now continue tracking that Berliners get worse and worse and not do anything, or we do something about it. So we implemented a second phase where we said what we learned from the ReSource Project is that we have these mental practices which can reduce stress and loneliness and so on. So we said, let's do a low-dose, scalable online approach, because we didn't know whether we would get, in another lockdown. So one group did a partner-based diet practice, And that's 12 minutes a practice I do with you, or with you, every week with someone else. And perhaps we have time with Johanna and, to do a run through this practice, because I don't have the time now, so I can explain how this intersubjective partner-based practice looked like, right? And then we had very classic mindfulness, present moment, attention, meditation. And, I'm sure we will also talk and hear more about it in the next talk. And both of our app, we had teachers who were, accompanying. So this is when you do a diet in person, and this is when you do it through the cell phone every day. And this is, you ask a question. We can come to that later so that I don't lose too much time here. But then you reverse order. And so it's very democratic. I explore difficult emotion. I train gratitude. The other is listening empathically to you without interruption, just listening, training empathic listening. Then we switch role. Super democratic. You don't need a therapist. But it has amazing effects. So you learn, for example, in this affect diet, you learn empathic listening, you learn how to accept difficult emotion, how to be with them, not dump them, or how to get more close, social connectedness, and so on. So that was resource data, because it was the first time we did these partner-based exercise, and people said, are you crazy? People will not call every day someone they don't know and then share something private about their lives and then change partner every week they don't know over 3 months. Are you crazy? Everyone loved it. It was a total bummer. It was just so great. People were like, can we do more diet after 3 months, right? It's really good. You just need first 2 weeks to go over it. And it creates closeness. You feel closer to the other, not just when you have done it, but every week before you meet your new partner and you don't know this partner yet, and you have not done a diet, you feel already more connected to this person. Every week more and more and more. So in a way, it's a social glue, it's social cohesion. It's a shared humanity, which we so much need, right? We need to come together again. So now through the CovSocial Project, we could compare the effect of 12 minutes mindfulness exercise, as many people know it from apps also and so on, and in red, the diet. And what we see, wow, even just online, even 12 minutes, only 10 weeks, not so bad, right? We can reduce emotion regulation. We can reduce anxiety and depression. We can increase self-compassion, compassion for others. I skip alexithymia, difficult concept. We can faster recover, and this mindfulness was better for stress recovery. However, the dyadic partner-based exercise was the only one, this social exercise, to boost resilience and to reduce this negativity bias, everything, hopelessness. Everything is bad, it's just the world is going under. It boosts your hope, your positivity outlook on life. It reduces loneliness. Only the diet could reduce loneliness, increase social connectedness, and that was amazing, reduce social stress on the cortisol, on the hormone level in your body. Not like subjective questionnaire, but like what are the hormones saying? So we were like, wow. I mean, first, coming back to Homo economicus, I hope you understood that Homo economicus is just not how we are human beings. We are so different, right? We can even train the care system and become better in it, and then we will be more altruistic, more cooperative, more compassionate. So we need to bring it into society, right? So I'm now very concerned how to bring it into society, and I'm closing here. So in business, in education, in healthcare system, because there is burnout rates like ramping to the ceiling. So we have a new project just starting. We will start recruiting teachers. So if there are teachers here among you, give us an email, because you can learn for free in a research project the dyadic practice. And that will do you really good, I can tell you, because I know the data. And healthcare provider. We want to help them go through their everyday life because they really suffer a lot. So if you are interested, you're a teacher, you have access to school. That's masterclass I give for healthcare provider. And together with Johanna and with the whole Entrepreneur Foundation, we are actually cooperating and giving a masterclass together in February. So there are 2-3 beds left. So if you are interested in learning these techniques in a retreat, it's 4 days retreat, 3.5-day retreat, and then we do 8 weeks from home per telephone, this dyadic practice with online teaching, and it's really beautiful work. And that's thank you, my group, and thank you for your attention, and I hope I was in time.
Thank you.